For those of us who've been in RC for a while now, it can be easy to dismiss when a new brand comes around and claims to be the next big thing. Usually when a new brand comes out, they kinda just fizzle away as nobody wants to take a risk on a new unproven company. Think of it like when Jeremy Clarkson reviews an off-brand supercar like a Noble. Who's going to look at a Porsche, Ferrari, Lambo, McLaren, Aston Martin, AMG, or any big name car and say, no, I want a car that nobody has ever heard of before, preferably one that has not been proven or tested. It doesn't really matter how good a car may be in that respect, the stigma is really hard to overcome. The same thing applies almost more so in the world of RC racing. Why would I spend money on a car that has been proven when I could spend money on one that has been proven, has part support, and driver support? My point is, getting into the business of RC racing cars is very difficult to do, which is why it's all the more impressive when some mad lad actually makes it happen outside of the giant RC boom in the 80s and 90s. In this video, we'll be going over some newer RC racing brands, along with some that are still finding their footing. Before that, however, I'd like to take this time to remind you to hit the like button and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Alright, let's begin. Tekno is a brand I have an odd relationship with. Not because their cars are bad or anything like that, but because people fanboying over their favorite brand of toy cars is really dumb. With that being said, I didn't actually even drive a Tekno until I bought their EB410.2 for review not too long ago. I still have it today if you're curious, and I still think it's one of the better four-wheel drive buggies out there, if not the best for beginner drivers and those running on larger tracks. This is mostly because Tekno have built themselves a reputation for building the most durable cars on the market. After all, you can't improve your driving if you're stuck at your bench repairing your car. But where exactly did Tekno come from? In 2005, a man named Daniel Lewis, who had been racing in RC for 2 decades at that point, decided to open up his own RC parts company that focused more on the performance part of the actual hobby. To put it simply, you wouldn't see Tekno making a part out of, say, aluminum because they simply could. There needed to be a performance-oriented reason behind it. Eventually, over time, they began developing electric conversion kits initially for cars like the Revo and T-Max from Traxxas, before expanding into the realm of nitro 8-scale buggies and converting those into e-buggies, with the advent of brushless systems and LiPo batteries. These conversion kits were pretty successful as they went on to place pretty well in a few events like DNC and Silver State races in the late 2000s and early 2010s. However, as brushless 8-scale electric e-buggies began to get more popular, Tekno began to lose drivers as their teams basically told them to stop using Tekno conversion kits as they would soon release their own e-buggies. I'm talking specifically about Associated and TLR. Tekno basically looked at this news and said, screw it, let's make our own buggy. And so they did. This buggy, the EB48, was very successful initially, not just at the top level, but also the whole RC racing world. Like I mentioned before, it was lauded for its durability and ease of construction. Over time, Tekno began to gain a lot more popularity with their revisions of the EB48 e-buggy and NB48 nitro buggy, going on to place well and even win at larger events. These days, Tekno has a fleet of cars ranging from 10-scale bashers like the MT410 to 8-scale racers like the EB48 I just mentioned to the ET48 truggy. They even managed to do something I thought impossible for a racing brand, and that's to popularize a new racing class. Even though other companies like LRP Racing and X-Ray make mini truggies, you'll be hard-pressed to find them on the track without the rest of the field being filled with Teknos. All of Tekno's cars, however, are built to be tough, easy to build, and crucially, be four-wheel drive. That's a little quirk about Tekno. It seems like they refuse to build anything that isn't driven by all four wheels. All in all, Tekno is very much here to stay, and I don't see anything wrong with that. For an even more recent brand, we only have to go back a couple of years to get to the Mayako project. But before that, we need to start a little bit earlier with JQ Racing. JQ Racing is another RC YouTuber and a very knowledgeable one at that. So much so that after being fed up with a lot of the modern RC world's problems, like sponsoring anyone for a Pulse for example, JQ decided he wanted to do something different and made it his goal to win an international event with a car he designed. He came extremely close to doing so, but his engine flamed out close to the end of the race. After this, JQ Racing saw some decent success in a lot of races around the world, But unfortunately, JQ started to fall into the same game that all of the other brands were playing, specifically their business practices in terms of team drivers, sponsorships, and overall costs. Because of this frustration, he decided to go back to the drawing board. He sold JQ for an amount of money, and he used everything he learned from developing the car and the e-car and started up the Mayako project. But how would Mayako be different from what people were used to with other companies in the first place? Mayako works something like this. As of the time of me writing this script, you can buy a Mayako A-Scale Nitro Buggy just like any other brand out there, with the difference being that you can really fine-tune what you want the car to look like and feel like once you build it. For example, you can choose which springs, roll bars, and pistons come in the kit you buy. However, if you want to fully commit to Mayako, you can buy into their membership program. Their membership program works something like this. For around about $430 a year or $38 a month, you gain access to a couple different things. For one, kits start at $500 and you get a 20% parts discount, so there's that. You also gain access to a Discord server that houses a few different pro drivers like David Runafalk. You'll also have bi-weekly Discord calls to discuss any and all pieces of advice you can give to the designers of the MX-8 Nitro Buggy and what you think would help it perform better. Lastly, you get access to a few exclusive parts and apparel along with early access to prototype cars like the MX-8 electric buggy. The car you're seeing on screen is that prototype. Now, depending on how deep into RC you are, you either think this is a good deal or a terrible one. The way I see it, it entirely depends on how active the Discord server actually is and how much interaction between regular members and top-level drivers there actually is, and how many kits and parts you intend to buy. As for how they've done so far, well, they did win the European Nitro Buggy Championships and almost won the IFMAR A-Scale World's Nitro Buggy, coming in second place, both times with Ronafalk at the wheel. With that being said, it's still up in the air as to whether or not Mayako is here to stay, as they are a very new brand. But considering their success, and the fact that I already see people running them here in Georgia, specifically at Phil Hurd, I'd say their chances are good. Now before I close this video out, why don't we take a look at a smaller but relatively new brand that's still trying to get their footing, MRO. MRO Racing is a Kickstarter brand in the UK running a pretty radical design for their four-wheel drive buggy called the Inspire 4. Now, the story for the buggy goes something like this. The designer for the buggy, David Orbell, had drawn up the designs for a new design for a four-wheel drive buggy from the ground up because, as he put it on the MRO website, four-wheel drive buggies had reached the pinnacle of design and would need to be redone from the ground up for there to be any improvement. After taking it to pretty much every single manufacturer, they said no because the risk was too great in terms of its design. David said screw it and decided to make the buggy himself. Taking a look at the buggy, it's quite different to what we've seen from other four-wheel drive buggies in terms of design. It has a laid-down shock design with multiple cantilevers to help keep the center of gravity as low as possible. In fact, pretty much everything on the buggy is really low, and for the most part from what I've been able to see, the car excels mostly on turf and carpet, but I've yet to see it perform on anything else other than grass. If you're curious about the MRO Inspire 4, you can check out their Facebook page in the description below. In conclusion, it's brands like these that give me hope for the future of RC racing. Not just because they're trying something new, because their very existence proves that RC racing is still a business worth looking into for others who may want to contribute. Whether it be building your own track, your own car, opening up a hobby store, or simply just showing up to a race, all are ways to contribute to the hobby. That's all for now. If you liked the video, be sure to hit the like button and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Also, if you enjoy my content and want to support it further, feel free to check out my Patreon page where I post updates and stuff like that to what my next videos are going to be and when they're going to release. Speaking of which, I'd like to thank my patrons Michael Williams, RC World Discord server, Casey Nix, Ben Reeves, Dave Armstrong, Ryan Lamb, Joe Jenkins, Juliet Lovelace, The Mailman 110, Brian Lofton, and especially Morrison Wan. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.